Alright, Trump meets with NATO in Brussels. It's tax time, and the ACCC attempts to slash your power bill. It's the 14th of July 2018, and this is what's going on. Okay, President Donald Trump is in Brussels this week for a critical NATO summit where he and 28 US allies will discuss threats to European security. NATO, which is the acronym for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a military alliance between the United States, Canada, and several European countries. It was signed in 1949 in an effort to contain Soviet aggression after World War II. The United States currently pays 22% of NATO's total cost, in which 2017 amounted to just under $2 billion. The meeting comes shortly after Trump made anti-NATO comments and sent letters to leaders of the several NATO countries condemning them for not spending more money on defense and potentially could impact on the US's global relationship. Mr. Trump declared that a joint natural gas pipeline venture with Moscow has left German government totally controlled and captive to Russia. The president questioned the necessity of the alliance that formed a group of nations against Soviet aggression, tweeting after a day of contentious meetings, quote, "What good is NATO if Germany is paying Russia billions of dollars for gas and energy?" End quote. Mr. Trump demanded via Twitter that the members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization must pay 2% of GDP immediately and not by the 2025 deadline. It was just the latest in Trump's demands and insults that critics fear will undermine a decades-old alliance launched to counterbalance Soviet aggression after World War II. It came just days before Trump planned to sit down with Putin in Finland at a conclusion of the European trip. Trump has spent weeks attacking members of the alliance for failing to increase military spending, accusing Europe of freeloading off the US and even raising doubts about whether he would come to the members' defense as required if they were ever attacked. Mr. Trump's criticism accelerated during the pre-summit breakfast, where he traded a face-to-face confrontation with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Quote, "We're supposed to protect you against Russia, but they're paying billions of dollars to Russia, and I think that's very inappropriate," end quote. Hours after the breakfast, Merkel and Trump appeared to play nice as they met along the summit's sidelines. Quote, "We're having a great meeting. We're discussing military expenditure and talking about trade," end quote. That's from Trump. Also, "We have a very, very good relationship with the Chancellor, and we have a tremendous relationship with Germany." Mr. Stoltenberg, for his part, has credited Trump for spurring NATO nations to spend more on defense, noting that Europeans and Canada are projecting to spend around $266 billion. He said that last year's increase marked the largest in a generation. Well, it seems fair to ask the nations in the area to try and protect themselves and not just rely on the US to come and save them. And when it comes to the gas pipeline, it does give Russia huge control and power over the nations which are wishing to use it. Alright, tax time. If you've ever exaggerated your work expenses to get a bigger income tax return, then you might have contributed to the federal government's $8.7 billion loss in 2014-2015. The tax office ATO has calculated what's known as the tax gap for individual taxpayers, which is the discrepancy between the amount of tax that should have been paid and what was actually paid. The $8.7 billion figure has surprised many tax professionals who believe it reveals the hidden cost of people hiding their cash incomes and fudging their expenses, all lying about rental income. The Institute for Public Accountants believes the figure is a wake-up call, and the peak body CPA Australia says the amount of lost revenue is enormous. The CPA is Certified Practicing Accountants. The ATO's Deputy Commissioner Alison Landon says that the multi-billion-dollar loss is primarily due to people making simple and unavoidable mistakes in their tax returns. About 9.3 million Australians lodged a personal tax income return in 2014 and 15. And Mrs. Landon says many small mistakes can be quickly add up to billions of dollars of lost revenue. Almost three-quarters of the 858 cases examined in the ATO's audit contained errors or deductions where people were not entitled to. While some of the $8.7 billion loss can be dismissed as simple errors, Mrs. Landon says that some people are deliberately committing fraud to ensure they get a better tax return. There's evidence in the community of people obviously wanting to get a big refund, and a way to do that is looking at the expenses that they claim. Also, there's also a group that we've seen through our random audit work that are more deliberate in their overclaiming and are quite aggressive in it. Tax agents are more likely to make errors, which was also discussed. Mr. Drum said he was also surprised that professional accountants were more likely to have made errors than people submitting returns themselves. The ATO is worried that some agents may be deliberately falsifying documents to ensure their clients get larger returns and to continue to do business with them. Mrs. Lenson said the tax office would take a harsh action against accountants found to be negligent, particularly when we look at those we consider high risk. That is where they are deliberately overclaiming and sometimes falsifying documents. We take a harsh view on them, as the community expects. CPA Australia's Paul Drum said people expect integrity from their tax agents and often pay them because they want to be sure that they're complying with the law. But Tony Greco from the Institute of Public Accountants said tax agents often rely on incorrect information provided by their clients. Mr. Wood said that the $8.7 billion was an estimate at best and not a surprise given that so many people lodge tax returns. Okay, so the ATO pledges to increase audits. Mrs. Lennon has also issued a warning to those who may be deliberately fudging their returns, foreshadowing the audits and the preventive action which will be coming. The Revenue Office has recently received a $130 million funding boost, which Mrs. Landon says will help the agency address compliance issues and tackle fraud. At the moment, the tax office recoups about $500 million a year in lost revenue and expects it to increase to about $750 million over the next year. Quote, we'll be doing more audits, so the actual coverage and interaction across the whole individual system is going to increase quite considerably this year. We're expecting to touch at least 1 million people through the work we are doing. Well, there you have it, guys. Be careful and accurate with your tax returns as auditing is increasing. Alright, the ACCC on power prices. The consumer watchdog believes Australians are paying too much for their electricity, and yes, I concur. A lack of competition in the energy market and policy mistakes by successive state and federal governments has added significant costs to power bills, according to the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. The watchdog says power bills can be reduced by at least 25%, yes, 25%, if governments adopt a series of recommendations from its report on the energy market. The ACCC's chairman, Rod Sims, reckons that's a conservative saving. Mr. Sims said among many reasons why bills have gone up, multiple governments have made poor decisions over the years that have contributed to ripping off consumers. Then there's market concentration in some parts of Australia, confusing bills, and the gold plating of the energy network. The ACCC reckons if all of its recommendations are adopted, people will save at least between 20 to 25% on their bills. But it says many people, include small and large businesses, could save even more. The biggest change would require a base or default price for power in each jurisdiction. They are suggesting the default offer that's in the market to be regulated by the Australian Energy Regulator, and that all discounts have to come off the common base. That will mean you'll get a clearer marketing for the consumer, and therefore they'll be better placed to take up better offers. The ACCC said another key way to slash bills would be for governments to fund the write-down of network assets such as poles and wires. Quote, I think this is heading in the right direction because the network prices constitute more than 40% of the end user bill, both for households and small businesses, end quote. The ACCC report also recommends changes to marketing, so headlining discounts are set from the default price and they must include a guaranteed discount. This is because some electricity plants offer discounts for short periods before going on to charge consumers a higher price. In other cases, discounts apply if you pay on time, or if you're late, you're going to get slapped with a fine. The ACCC said there needed to be a mandatory code but for comparison websites, so offers were based on customer benefit, not commission. The report found solar companies were paying on average The report found solar customers were paying on average $538 less per year than non-solar customers. Well, let's hope the government adopts the recommendations stated by the ACCC, because I'm sure everyone would enjoy the reduction in their power bill. All right, the Fast Five. Number one, gay farmers go naked to help raise awareness of mental health. When the naked farmer came to town looking for people to get their kid off for a good cause, dairy farmer Kerry Wilson was approached to take part. He and his partner Paul Wilson agreed. Though Kerry had reservations about not having the right body type, he stated, "Gee whiz, I'm 56. Does it matter?" The cause, which raises awareness about mental health issues for Australian farmers, which hits a personal chord with the couple. Kerry and Paul are fifth-generation farmers who live and work together near Nimbin in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales. All right, number two. Whichever side you agree with, Trump Baby, which is a 20-foot orange blimp depicting Donald Trump as an enraged smartphone-clutching infant, will be a sight to behold when it flies above the British capital today. On the same day, around 50,000 people are planning to march through central London to protest the US president's visit to the UK. It will start outside the BBC building in Portland Place before travelling through Oxford Circus and ending up in a rally at Trafalgar Square. Right, number three, the Thai cave incident. All 12 boys and their coach have been rescued from the cave in Thailand and are in hospital being treated too, but all are well. Number four, Sarah Palin recently revealed that she was duped by actor Sacha Baron Cohen, who disguised himself as a disabled US veteran to interview her for his upcoming Showtime series, Who is America? And a source states that the former Alaskan governor, 54, walked out of the prank interview after discussing Cohen and asked her a whole heap of horrible questions about Chelsea Clinton. So here we go, in quote, "All of it was obnoxious, but I think the last straw was when the interviewer asked about what he claimed was a government-funded sex change operation for Chelsea Clinton." End quote. Cohen was trying to get the governor, Palin, to say something homophobic or hateful. Sources say she takes it personally when anyone goes after the children of families of politicians. All right, number five, an audit has found former Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce did not break any travel expenses rules between May 2016 and February this year. The watchdog also examined Mrs. Champion's travel over the same period. She started working with Mr. Joyce as his media advisor in May 2016 and moved on to another job with the Nationals in 2017. The only anomaly is Mr. Champion's travel was a trip where she broke a journey between Gladstone and Canberra and spent 3 nights in Sydney before completing a trip in Canberra. And that is the weekly news. And that's it for the weekly news review, guys. If you like this, please subscribe. Don't forget to hit the little bell next to it. If you've liked it as well, please leave a like. If you want to comment, leave a comment below, or you can contact me on wgoadamelder@gmail.com or Facebook, Twitter, or the comments section below. Till next time, enjoy yourselves.